Alright, on to the next logic lesson. So before we continue and we hit the truth table, what we're going to do is we're going to go over some statements and the properties of statements, like the negation of statements, how we're going to make compound statements, the different connections of compound statements, which are both the conjunction and the disjunction. So what is pretty much going to happen is we'll have a couple of sentences or statements. We're going to have to figure out whether they're true or they're false. Okay, that's called the truth value. Now, each sentence or each statement will be represented by a letter, and it's typically the P or the Q. And if we go further, it just goes on R, S, and so on. Now here's an example. Here's a statement. We only have one statement, so we use the letter P. Supplementary angles have a sum of 180 degrees. Well, we've learned that is true. So the truth value is true. Seem fairly simple enough. So let's go into what's called negation. Now, a negation of any statement is really just the opposite. Okay? It's like saying the opposite of whatever I just told you. It's usually given by a little symbol like that, and you can read it as not P. So this would be not P. Here we're going to redo the statement that we have up top, but instead we're adding the negation of it. So once we negate it, once we say the opposite, like supplementary angles do not have the sum of 180, then we give a truth value to it. Well, we understand that that is false. Just because we negate it doesn't mean that negating something doesn't mean we have to find a truth to it. No, we just say the opposite of whatever the sentence is giving us. If we say the sky is blue, and we ask to negate that, we can say the sky is orange. Alright, compound statements. That means you're going to put two statements together. You're going to put the P and the Q together. Okay, we're going to go with these variables. But how do I put them together? You're going to be using the words and the words or. Let's go over the first one. We're going to go over the and. Whenever we use the word and, it's called a conjunction. Okay? If we're putting two statements together using the word and, we're going to use this symbol. It looks like the top of a house. Okay? Notice how they use the letter P. Then they use the conjunction and Q. Now if you're going to find the truth value of this conjunction, then both statements have to be true. If not, it's false. Then we go to the compound statement joined by the word or. This is called a disjunction. So that means we're going to combine one statement with the other one using or. Now the or symbol looks like a V. For this one, for it to be true, only one of the statements has to be true. So let's look at what you're going to see on your classwork, on your homework. For this, you're going to need to understand the symbols, what they look like, the statements, what they represent. So notice how they give one statement's a P, one statement's a Q, and one's an R. before we move on to this bottom section, we have to find the truth value to these. So if I'm going to look at the truth value, so I'm going to read the first sentence. There are 7 days in a week. True. March has 30 days. False. Halloween is on October 31st. True. Okay, I've assigned truth values. So now we're going to go off and we're going to write our sentences. But we're going to write our sentences according to the compound statement connector. P and Q. So P is there are 7 days in a week. So I'm going to write it out. There are, and I'm going to write 7 days in a week. And Q is March has 30 days. What is the truth value of this compound statement? Because we're using and, we need to look at conjunction, which means both have to be true. In this case, Q is false, so my answer has to be false. So now we're going to the second part, Q and R. Well, Q March has 30 days. The connector is still and. Our statement says Halloween is on October 31st. Alright, what's the truth value of this compound statement? Well, we're using and again. If we're using and, both of these have to be true. The fact that Q is false makes the entire thing false. But if you go down to the number 3, P and R, there are 7 days in a week. And should be and Halloween is on October 31st. Both of those, P and Q, P and R, both are true, so my truth value for this compound has to be true. So now we move on to, say let's do number 4. We're using the negate or negation. So when we negate something, we change its truth value. So P is there are 7 days in a week. So if I'm going to say not P, I'm just going to say the opposite, even though it's not true. So I will say there are not 7 days in a week. the connection is still and, so I'm going to put and. Q is March has 30 days. Well, if we're using and, the requirement for and in a conjunction, both have to be true. Both are false. So this has a false truth value. But now let's try the other one. Now we're using the upside down, the V. This is or. This conjunction has to do with or. So P, there are 7 days in a week, or Halloween is on October 31st. This is using or. For or, we only need one of them to be true. The fact that this one, both of them are true, that's fine. It works out. True. Let's do number 7. Number 7, not P or, we're using the or, not P and not R. So I'm going to do the opposites of both the P and the R. So P says there's 7 days in a week, so I'm going to say there are not 7 days in a week. Or not R. R says Halloween is on October 31st. So I'm going to say or Halloween is not on October 31st. I've changed both of these from their original truth values, from being true to both being false. The stipulation is that one of them has to be true. None of them are. So, false. And you simply keep on going with each and every one. Make sure you pay attention that this symbol is and. Both have to be true. And this symbol is or. Only one has to be true. Alright, let's move on to truth tables. So the thing about truth tables is we get rid of the statements, we get rid of the sentences, and we're strictly dealing with setting up a truth table for 2 statements, for 3 statements. It all depends on what your end compound statement will be. So the basics here, it tries to give you a truth table for negation, for conjunction, and for disjunction. Well, for negation is just the opposite. So for negation, what's the opposite of true? False. What's the opposite of false? True. But when we go off into conjunction, we have to remember the rule. This is and. So the rule for and, both have to be true. So here we are. True, true, true. The minute you have one false, it's false. It's false. It's false. Then you go to disjunction. Disjunction is or, where only one needs to be true. So true, true, true. Here we have true, false. One of them is true. Here we have false, true. One of them is true. Here we have both false. Then it becomes false. Here are some tips on how to create your own truth tables. I don't think you'll have to do that with me. I'll provide you with the truth tables anyways. You just have to fill them in. You will have to create a truth table for each statement or each individual letter without the negation. Okay, so you'll have to take care of this. Then you look at it and you'll have to see, okay, do I have any negations? Yes, so then you'll have to make a column for each one of those. Lastly, you'll have to do the compound statements. So if we look at number 1, we have P and we have not R. This is a negation. That means in order for have not R, I have to have R. So I'm going to have P, I'm going to have R, then I'm going to have not R, and lastly, I'm going to have the conjunction. The compound statement, which is P or not R. 1, 2, 3, 4. So P, R, not R, P, or not R. This is how you're going to set up a truth table for 2 items or for 2 statements. You will have the probability of true, true, false, false, and then this one alternates. If it's true, it's true. If it's true, it could be false, true, false. This column, now, we're going with the opposite of R. So the opposite of R here is false. This one is true, this one is false, and this one is true. For this section right here, we're going to combine this column and this column using OR. Remember the stipulation for OR, one of them has to be true. So I have true, false, one of them is true, so it's true. True, true, true. False, 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 true, one of them is true, so then this is your answer. Not P and Q. That means we have to designate what are we using. Statements. Well, for us to have not P, I have to have regular P. We have Q. Then we have not P. And then we have the entire statement or the entire compound. Not P and Q. So let's fill in. We have P, we have Q, we have not P, and then we have not P and Q. Truth table, true, true, false, false. This will always be the first two columns. Doesn't matter the letters. Opposite of P. So opposite of P, false, false, true, true. Don't, make sure you target the correct letter. We're targeting P. So now what we're going to do is we're going to combine not P and Q. And requires both to be true. So true false is false, false false is false. Finally, true true, true, and lastly, these two. Let's look at more complicated. Let's look at the next page. So we're continuing on. Let's work on something larger. Let's look at number 7. Before we start, we need to fill in our column. So we need to find out how many statements do we have. We have QPR. Alphabetically, we know we're going to have P. That's 1. We're going to have Q, because in order to have not Q, we have to have Q. We're going to have R. We have not Q. Then we have this compound statement, P and R. And then we have the big one, the not Q and P and R. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns to fill out. P, Q, R, not, not Q. And we have P and R. And then we have not Q and, oops, P and R. Alright, so here's how this is filled out. Whenever you have 3 statements, whenever you have the 3, the first column is 4 trues, 4 falses. The second one, 2 trues, 2 falses, 2 trues, 2 falses, and the last one alternates. True, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. This is basic always. If you have 2, we'll follow the first format. If you have 3, it will always follow this format. Alright, now we're going to do the opposites of Q. So we're going to write our new Q's. False, false, true, true, false, false, true, true. P and R. Alright, so our first one here, we're going to do P and R. It's and, which means both have to be true. So P and R, the first one is true, true, true. True and false, false. True, true, true. True and false, false. False and true, false. False, false, false. False, true, false. And last is false. Remember, we combine these. Alright, lastly, we're doing the not Q's and this one. We're still using and, which means both have to be true. First one, false, true, false. Second one, false, false, false. True, true, true. False, 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 and false. Hopefully, you'll ask me some questions during class because these are the difficult ones.